Good evening and calling the meeting to order. Welcome to the West Hartford Public Schools regular Board of Education meeting. It is Tuesday, September the 3rd. Charlotte, may you please begin by calling the roll?
Mr. Gagnon,
Present.
Mr. Goldman,
Here.
Dr. Harris,
Here.
Ms. Merrimon,
Here.
Mrs. Mazzarella,
Present.
Dr. Thomas Farquharson,
Here.
Mrs. Yagaloff,
Present.
Student Representative Sarah Granquist,
Here.
and Student Representative Herschel Yagrabelli.
Here.
Thank you. Sarah, may you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We do not have a revision to the agenda order, but I first want to begin by saying hello, as this is our first board meeting, Board of Education meeting that is, of the 2024-2025 academic school year. Wow, how time certainly does go by quickly. And with us starting off a new school year, we are always excited when our team expands and grows and changes. And our team has expanded with our student representatives. And so we did do the roll call, but just want to formally welcome and recognize our wonderful student representatives. We have representing Hall, Sarah Granquist. Sarah, tell me how to pronounce your last name correctly, please.
That was right. It's Granquist.
Oh, all right. Well, welcome. Thank you so much. And we are so thankful to have Harshil with us today. And we know that the student representative for Conard is Alexis Hahn Nugent. However, she is a student first and foremost. And today she has a varsity field hockey game. So we certainly wish Sarah well, as well as their teammates. But she was responsible and has a designee in her place. So Harshil, thank you so much for joining us today. I will go back to the agenda, and with that, we now have public communications. This is an opportunity where we're able to hear from the public your questions, your thoughts, your suggestions. Each person is allowed 3 minutes to speak, and we ask for you to come to the podium to share your name and your town of residence. We are attentively listening as members. However, it is policy that we do not respond to comments as they are being made. With this being the first meeting of the month, we are receiving comments on agenda and non-agenda items. However, for our awareness, the agenda items for today include acceptance of the Hall High School and Sedgwick Middle School partial roofing projects as complete, and the 2024-2025 opening of schools, that being the overview, plant facilities, IT, transportation, curriculum instruction, pupil services, human resources, equity advancement, and the first day of school enrollments. We begin with those who desire to speak on agenda items. I have a list here, however, there is no one signed up. Just for consistency, we'll ask if there's anyone in the audience who cares to speak. Seeing none, we'll go if anyone cares to speak on any agenda item. Anyone in the audience or possibly who is walking? No one is here. So with that, no one is physically here, that is, but those of you viewing, we're glad you are with us. With that, we will pause and now move on to non-staff communications and reports. And this is where we're able to hear from our student representatives what is happening within their school. And so, Harshil, may you first begin sharing with us about Conard.
Hello, everyone. My name is Herschel Yagrabelli, and I'm a senior at Conard High School. And for the 2024-2025 school year, I will be one of the Board of Education student representatives from Conard, along with Alexis Nguyen. She asked me to share some words on her behalf. Hi, everyone. Unfortunately, I cannot come to today's meeting due to a timing conflict with my varsity field hockey game. However, I'm glad that Herschel is available to attend in my place, and I'm excited to meet you all in the next meeting. I'm honored to be chosen as the Board of Ed student representative, and I'm looking forward to fulfilling this position during the school year. Go Red Wolves. Anyway, on behalf of the Conard student body, I would firstly like to thank our admin team, secretaries, counselors, social workers, librarians, nurses, teachers, coaches, security guards, custodians, cafeteria personnel, and any other faculty members that I might have forgotten. We may not fully grasp how much work it takes to prepare for the upcoming school year, but we do greatly appreciate all your efforts to make Conard a place where us students can be active learners and productive citizens. So for the opening of school at Conard, we had 2 new projects. One was the Together We Grow project, in which we had around 70 students planting, cleaning areas, and beautifying spaces around the school. Second, a new mural was painted in our courtyard by over 20 Conard students and by artist Matt Conway, who is part of the design agency Rise Up for Arts, and artist Julie Bergeron. Additionally, the incoming freshmen and new transfer students were welcomed during their orientation. In addition to meeting their teachers and walking through their schedule, they also attended our club fair, which was a success. About 30 of our amazing clubs were able to participate in this fair and pitch themselves to the freshmen. And many of these clubs are having introductory meetings this week and are very excited to begin the school year. Moving on to athletics, our fall sports teams have finished their preseason training and scrimmages, and most of them will be starting their games and matches this week, with both the boys and girls soccer teams, field hockey, and girls volleyball teams starting their regular season today. Moving to the arts department, our advanced music ensembles, I Giovanni Solisti, Concert Jazz Band, and Solo Choir will be beginning their evening rehearsals this week, and our state-winning and nationally recognized theater/drama department announced that this year's musical will be Disasters. Finally, I would like to give one shout-out. First, we are very proud to mention that Mrs. McHugh, one of our science teachers at Conard, was awarded Teacher of the Year. And both myself and Alexis have had her as our AP Chemistry teacher. And Mrs. McHugh is always looking out for her students and finding new ways to help them learn. And we're delighted to be able to recognize her talents. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sarah, may you please share with us what's going on at Hall?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Granquist, and I'm a senior at Hall High, and I'm honored to serve as a Student Board of Education representative this year. We have seen a lot of new changes at Hall with the new school year, including a new interim principal, Mrs. Isaacs, and recently a new interim assistant principal, Mr. Colombano. Our nurse's office is being renovated and is almost finished, and we have seen a number of renovations around the school that were completed over the summer, including a new glass hallway and many new doorways. We recently had a very successful Link Crew orientation in which new students, so our freshmen and any transfer students, had 2 days to bond, meet their teachers, join clubs, and get to know the school. This program is led by junior and senior Hall students themselves. Today, we completed our last beginning of the year class assembly with the freshmen, and last week our sophomores, juniors, and seniors had their class meetings, in which our administrators went over Hall's rules and regulations. Our official phone policy in the student handbook has not changed, but there has been a much stronger emphasis so far this year on having phones off and away during class. We also have a new hallway pass system in which students sign out on a digital platform to leave the classroom and then must sign back in when they return. So there is now digital record of when students are leaving the classroom. Many of our clubs and organizations are starting up this week with their first meetings, including student government. Many of our sports teams have already had their first games or meets, and others have their first coming up soon. Like Hartford mentioned at Conard, our music groups are beginning their evening rehearsals this week, one of which is I Giovanni Solisti, a joint group between Hall and Conard. And so things are back in full swing this week at Hall with the new school year.
Thank you. And we wish you both well this upcoming academic school year, with both of you being seniors, a special year. Excellent. Thank you so very much. Continuing on now to unfinished business, where we have acceptance of the Hall High School and Sedgwick Middle School partial roofing projects as complete. And we have a recommendation that the Board of Education accept the partial roofing projects at Hall High School, State Project Number 155-241-RR0321, and Sedgwick Middle School, State Project Number 155-242-RR0321, as being complete, and to authorize the Superintendent of Schools to request payment of the school construction grant from the State Department of Education. Is there a motion?
Question first, do we need separate motions?
Well,
You just need a motion to approve it, is all that the state requires. I don't know what your practice may be.
I'm making sure, I want to know what the state requires of us.
certainly. Well, not assume, but recognizing that the state is funding both projects, we can be technical and go over one, but they both are covered by the state. So for that purpose, I think one motion should suffice. And so in light of the recommendation being to approve what has been done, or rather the funding that is being provided by the State Department of Education with respect to the state projects that were named, let us begin with State Project 155-241-RR0321. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Shannon. Discussion. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. There, now moving on to State Project Number 155-242-RR0321. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, LaToya. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just,
Yes.
it's from 2021. Is that the normal process, how long it takes, or?
Yes. Yeah, it normally takes that long for projects to get punched and closed out.
And
And
so
then
then the state,
Then it goes to the state for their review and audit. We should perhaps receive the funding in a couple of years.
I'm trying to understand, because I
Yep.
don't remember anything previously. Are there others that are in the pipeline as well?
Yep. This is just the process as we close out
So it usually
projects
takes a
from the
couple years.
past. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Or Dr. Murrow, anything else to add to the discussion? All right. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you. And thank you, Jason, for ensuring we are crossing our T's and dotting our I's. With that, now moving on to new business, which we do not have any of. So we now are going to go to staff communications and reports, where we have the superintendent's report. Did a lot of updates for us. And so with that, I'm going to pass the baton or the microphone over to Mr. Vicinas.
Thank you very much. And again, welcome back to all of you. Welcome Herschel, welcome Sarah. And as the team gets settled, I'll make a couple of shares and celebrations. I've been told to be very cautious about what I share so I don't steal any thunder from the team, but I don't believe any of these things will be in their reports. So very excited. I believe I sent you some notification over the summer about our Sedgwick Wildcat team, U.S. champions, representing West Hartford, the state of Connecticut, and the United States in the Quizlet World Finals, placing 5th overall. And that was overseas in Australia, as I recall. Recent news, as recent as today, Bugby third grader Ilana Schenkel is now a published author. Last year, as a second grader, Ilana submitted a short story entitled The Scary Swing to the National Young Authors Fair, and her story was selected among hundreds of submissions locally for publication by Brit Books. So received a copy of that in the mail today, very excited for her. 3 recent 2024 Hall High School graduates were recently awarded the Dr. Morris Cohen Youth Sports Award, which is an award provided annually by the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame here in town. So Ellie Goldstein was recognized for outstanding achievement in field hockey. In her resume, she scored over 100 career goals. She's been first team All-State, All-Conference, and All-Academic player. Simon Levy, a 4-year football player and a 2023 football captain, was recognized. He's earned all academic conference football team honors for 3 consecutive years. And thirdly, in alphabetical order, Isaac Mahler was recognized for cross country, having been the Connecticut State Open champion in the 3,200 meter, as well as a New England Championship runner-up. So kudos to those 3 Hall graduates. That's quite impressive. I had shared once about Edutopia, which is a national clearinghouse of educational best practices. They had published a first in a series of videos. Over the summer, they've now completed a total of 4 in a series of videos highlighting Whiting Lane Elementary School. This project provides a national spotlight on the excellent instructional practice that permeates throughout the Whiting Lane community. We're very proud, and I'll be certain to forward you a link if you'd like to peruse. And last, and certainly not least, our very own Melissa Caballero and Dr. Andrew Morrow have been invited to speak at the 2025 AASA School Superintendents Association National Conference to highlight our very own post-secondary program and the Next Chapter bookstore. Their selection is based on best practice in post-secondary education, successful job site programming, and community outreach. So we are very, very proud, certainly of that program, and excited to have them represent us on a national stage. So with that, our team is assembled. From my left to right, of course, Liz Hewitt, our Director of Finance and Planning, Teresa Rangel, our Executive Director of Equity Advancement, Dr. Andy Morrow, our Assistant Superintendent for Administration, Mr. Julio Duarte, our Executive Director of Human Resources, Ms. Melissa Caballero, our Executive Director of Pupil Services, and Ann McKernan, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, are all assembled, ready to present to you a laundry list of wonderful updates across each of their domains. So with this, I will turn it over to Dr. Morrow.
We all set in? All right. So, for a very busy summer as far as building goes, a couple of highlights to go through. As you can see, we began the project over at Duffy, which is the complete replacement of all of the windows and adding in an HVAC system. In essence, we're building the building, rebuilding it during the school year. And so we're able to complete, it's on schedule, we're able to complete the window replacements and the prep work that we wanted to over the summer when it was unoccupied. As you can see, ductwork was put into the ceilings, and then, Ann, if you could switch that, oops, one back, there you go. There we go. So as you can see, inside the classrooms, we've added in the individual HVAC units. Those are covered in the blue there. And so that's with the ductwork that's been run. And then you can see the completely new window systems that are in the building from both the exterior and the interior. And to do this, we added 5,000 square feet of portable space that's been added on to the building that we're going to be, we'll be moving the first graders out to that as their classrooms for the year, and then their interior classrooms, which have been completed already, will be the swing space as the contractors are moving through the building, completing the rest of the work. Those classes will move to those classrooms for the 3 weeks at a time that it will take to do the work. And so the contractor is doing a great job, and the community has been very pleased and very understanding of the occasional dust that is stirred up. And so that's a project that will be ongoing for the rest of the year. And then, as you know from the CIP, and we'll talk about this again in the spring for the CIP, but then the project then begins at Webster Hill for next year, starting over next summer. That's an easier project. We won't need the swing space at Webster Hill. It's only 1 story, first of all, so we can do a lot of the work on the roof, and then down into individual classrooms. And there's also there's maintenance tunnels that run underneath Webster Hill that we can run conduit and HVAC through, so we don't need to be disturbing the ceilings and the hallways as much. At Conard, it's been a long time coming. I think it's been, 10 years to get the visitor bleachers replaced. And so they are in place and have been finally put in at Conard and at Hall. We replaced all of the exterior doors and renovated the health suite there. It's a much better use of the space, as well as at KP. We renovated the space there as well for their health suite. And so I'd like to thank Bob Palmer, who has been instrumental in these projects, as always, this summer, and Chris Oliver, who is our construction manager for the town and for the schools, and has done a great job over at Duffy and maintaining that and making sure that everything's in place there. He just had a little boy the first day of school, so he's home this week, and then he's coming back tomorrow, maybe. Our IT department continues to do their work over the summer and getting the schools ready, and we appreciate all of their work as well. And then last, our transportation office, Damaris Torres and Dama Ramos, who's new to the office. The two of them, many people don't realize, run our entire transportation group and do a fantastic job working with First Student, working with specialty and all of our different providers. And so this year, we're going to be transporting a little over 5,100 students on 92 buses with over 208 runs each day, and we're still working out some of the balancing of that, and so we appreciate people's flexibility. I would just like to highlight that this year we piloted it last year, and this year is the First View bus tracking app, which all the parents received information about participating, and I hopefully the work we did on it last year, people were very pleased with and enthusiastic about it, and we're getting good reviews on it this year, and it cuts down those conversations about where's the bus. Because people are able to get a better sense of where it is. So with that, I'll pass it on.
Well, it's good to see everyone. Thank you, Melissa. It's good to see you all back at the table for the 24-25 year. The Office of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment has had a pretty productive summer. We endeavored this summer to partake in activities that would lay a solid foundation for the upcoming school year. So we did a lot of work on our strategic planning to ensure there's coherence between the school plans, the various department plans, and the district plans to make sure we're all speaking the same language and that we're very clear on our goals. I thank Eileen Eustace, our Director of Secondary Education, who was with me all summer looking at those plans. And our office also welcomes Melissa Behrens this year as Director of Elementary. And Melissa just started just about a week or two ago. We also worked with the Office of Human Resources, had a great first day for orientation. I won't steal Julio's thunder, but Melissa's team and my team teamed up for the following day for new teachers to review some very important early information they need. So we provided time to teach them the 8 instructional strategies we believe are the most highly effective. So they come into the district and they understand that West Hartford has a very clear vision for teaching and learning. And we also worked with them to train them on all of the special education protocols, resources, and it was a really nice partnership that I hope can continue in the future. So all of our special educators were with Melissa's team first, with regular educators with our office, and then they switched, and they both got a really high dose of what we consider to be good teaching and where to go when you need differentiation and support and strategies for our students with special education services. We also continue to invest in professional learning. We are happy to have for the second time this year Peter Liljedahl. He is the author. He's an author, a writer, and was a teacher. Author, researcher, and a teacher. He wrote a book called Building Thinking Classrooms, which promotes 14 instructional strategies that center children in the room, have children up and speaking about their mathematics dialogue, and it really promotes what we think is good teaching. So 50 of our teachers participated in that training in August at Charter Oak. It was a pleasure to have Peter. And I think it was April, we also had Peter, and I think about 65 of our educators were there. So we're able to, at no cost to our educators, provide some very high quality PD that highlights what we consider to be excellent practice. Every year, we also promote our AP training program for our teachers. So this year, I believe 14 teachers went to have advanced training in their AP course. So this could be a new teacher. If you have a new teacher for AP, I look at our students right here. You mentioned you were taking AP chemistry just a few minutes ago. Or teach, if a course content has changed, they go for refresher training, or if there's a new course. So we have sent 14 teachers to that. We spent a lot of time this summer also with 50 different curriculum projects, which we were improving our curriculum and revising it or writing new curriculum. There was a heavy focus on our early college experience courses. So we applied for a grant last year, and we received this grant to expand the number of UConn ECE courses we offer. And what we're most excited about that is now we offer at least one UConn ECE in every discipline. So this year we added Drawing 2. We did not have one in the arts, so we have Drawing 2 as an ECE. We added Kinesiology, Health and Urban Environment in the Physical Education Department, and Public Speaking as a second Theater Arts program. So we're very excited. Every discipline now has at least one ECE. We've also put all of our curriculum in one space, one electronic repository, so it's easy for these teachers to get to. We introduced our new teachers to that as well when they were in. In terms of our summer programming, we ran a full slate of summer programs once again this year, and your book kind of indicates a little overview of each one of the programs. Our Summer Connections program serves our children at Charter Oak and Smith, and that's a 4-week program. We had the ESOL program again held at Smith School this year for our EL students in grades rising grade 1 through 8. Our Hillcrest Area Neighborhood Outreach Center welcomed 30 students this summer. The middle school program, which we received a grant for that because if you remember, we funded that for 3 years with ESSER money, but this year we wrote and received a grant. Teresa was one of the primary authors on that grant. Thank you very much. Which allowed us to not only run our middle school summer program, but to expand it. It had an afternoon component, and we invited Skyhawk Sports Camp as a partner. So we were able to offer sports programming and arts programming in the afternoon, which was a nice addition. We ran our normal high school summer school program again, which allows students to either get credit for advancing their coursework or to remediate. On page 10, you'll see a little bit of a breakdown of the program. So we had nearly 1,000 students we were directly engaged with this summer in either arts programming, ESOL, high school credit recovery, high school advancement, middle school, and able to touch a lot of lives with that work. And finally, all of our secondary schools have these transition programs that are run by students, and I think our representatives from Conard and Hall mentioned a Link Crew. This is a program where students are trained to run orientation programs for the incoming students. So that happens in the middle school through the Web Leaders program and in the high school through Link Crew. Thank you.
I'm just, relative to the summer programming, was there more interest than capacity, or were you able to, were the programs in general able to accommodate all the demand?
I would say we were just right about correct on that. So we try not to limit at all. We try to, we all through the spring, we're getting numbers, registrations, and sign-up numbers, and we're working on what our normal enrollment is, and then if we have to flex a few more teachers to that program or another, we usually prepare for that in the spring. But I don't think our demand outpaced what we could offer. We were pretty right on target, I would say. Any other questions? Yes, Gail.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question about the Summer Connections program, where it said the program supported students attending Title I schools. I'm assuming, but maybe incorrectly, those are schools in other districts?
No, only the Title I schools that we offer here in West Hartford.
Oh, so those are West Hartford schools?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then I had one other question about the program. I'm not sure, is it HANOC?
HANOC, yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. That only engaged 30 students.
Yes.
And I'm wondering how you get into that program.
So that's a neighborhood program in the Hillcrest neighborhood. There's a facility in Hillcrest area that I believe is owned, the building's owned by the town, is that correct? The building's owned by the town, and there are services that serve that particular community. So there are many students who go there after school, they get off the bus and they go there for homework help. So it's a program that is particular for a neighborhood. If you live there and you're used to going there after school and getting extra help, or your parents going there for some special programming, they offer a summer component, and it pretty much serves that neighborhood. And it's walking distance for people. They're used to it during the year, so it's been a great summer addition.
Not really limited to 30 people, it's just
that's right.
people of the neighborhood who
Right.
decided to do it.
Correct. I
Okay.
work with the program directors in the spring, as I said, saying how many signups do you have, how many people do you need, how many teachers, and then by listening to everyone, we can usually flex the budget a little bit here or there and make sure it works, because it doesn't swing wildly.
And so in addition, Melissa will report, there were about 400 kids in the ESY.
Yes.
So really, there's almost 1,000, 300. It was a big summer. Does the Hannock follow the same ESY schedule, 4 weeks?
Yes, roughly 4 weeks.
Okay. So in general, and everything is staffed by West Hartford teachers?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. I just want to say, I think in high school summer school program, occasionally we have hired outside teachers, but I believe that's a rarity.
Priorities given to West Hartford first.
Yeah. Yes, so you're correct. I was reporting kind of on the programs that our office oversees, but Melissa has a whole host of other programs she can report on. Thank you.
Other questions, teammates? For Anne. All right, Melissa, thank you.
Do you want to go next? Okay. So warm welcome back to the school year. Herschel, Sarah, welcome to the board table. It's so nice to have student voice. Thank you for giving your time and being here and being present. So the last time I sat at this table, we discussed our district-wide performance report. Similar to that, the state monitors special education through the state annual performance report. So the data provided in your board book today is actually from the 2021-2022 school year. That data was released in December of 2023. So we're just a little behind on reporting. While the reporting from the state is for a previous school year, just know that we continue to monitor these trends internally. But the district during that year met the highest level of determination, which is meets requirements. Areas where they monitor include rates on graduation for students with disabilities, early childhood numbers, disproportionality, chronic absenteeism, our post-secondary transition supports, general supervision, and timely and accurate state reporting, which is inclusive of some state regulations around seclusion, restraint, compliance with federal and state laws around timelines for referrals, annual reviews, and compliance under IDEA. And so we're very proud that we continue to always have the highest level of determination of meeting requirements. So just know that those are areas that as a department we continue to monitor annually, despite the fact that the state's a little behind on their reporting period and their reporting for years past. So we hope that we'll get the next following school year as soon as possible, but we haven't heard from the Bureau of Special Education relative to an update on that component. As Anne shared, we've had some very robust summer programming, and as Claire shared, for our extended school year this summer, we supported over 400 students. That spans from our earliest and youngest learners at preschool all the way through our post-secondary transition program. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our plant services team. This summer, while they were supporting some changes at Whiting Lane, we moved to Aiken in order to facilitate climate controls for our more fragile learners. The team worked around the clock to install additional air conditioners in which was a unseasonably hot summer to keep our students safe and cool. And I really appreciated their time and efforts around that. They daily monitored the temperatures and the learning environment for our students to ensure it was safe for them every day. So we really appreciate all of the efforts that went into creating that safe, positive learning environment. Our extended school year program runs 4 weeks, 5 days a week, and we are going to continue to review our model, especially for our intensive academic program, which supports our more fragile learners who might require a more extended period for ESY, so that there's less time between the school year, our summer program, and then the start of the school year again, to prevent learning loss, regression, and support students who have multifaceted needs. So we'll continue to review our students, their needs, and be responsive to those as we plan for the next school year and summer programming. This year, the most up-to-date number is that we have over nearly 1,800 students with IEPs. We've had a lot of new registrants this first few weeks of school, so I do believe that number to be higher than the number reported in your board book of students moving into the district with IEPs, many of which who are supported in our more intensivized programming model. And we have over 1,000 students starting the year with Section 504 plans who require accommodations to access their learning. This continues to be the increasing trend that I've talked about at the board table, and we estimate that we're approximately at 19% prevalence rate. We do see that we're a little bit higher than the state at this point in time, but the trends mirror the state in the fact that there is an increasing trend that tends to be quite high across the districts and the towns. And so relative to that, we really look at how we're staffing. And so one of the larger restructuring components here in the district was the restructuring of our administrative model to really support fostering positive relationships with our students and our families by changing our administrative structure. And so I was proud to welcome Mrs. Kelly Brous to our team as Assistant Director of Pupil Services over the summer. And she has been such a valuable colleague in doing this very important work. We also onboarded 11 new elementary assistant principals and have supported them in their acclimation to their new roles, along with our pupil services department supervisors. And we're already seeing a positive impact with their ability to reach and make partnerships with families, students, and creating that feeling of belonging and welcoming schools. And so we're really happy to have this new model in place and believe it will have quite a positive impact on our students, our families, and our community. We also welcome 29 new certified and professional staff, which might include special education teachers and related service providers, for staff that might have left due to retirements, resignations, moves, and so on. And 10 of those are new positions that were added in the budget, some of which were moved out of ESSER. They were previously funded by ESSER and moved into the formal budget, and others were those that were added as part of a response to the increase in trend that we see with special education students. Over the summer, we have a legislative update. This year, there are two noteworthy components to make mention of. One is a continuation of the 2023 legislation session, which talked a lot about transition. And so that's all of our students ages 14 through 22. And really the state's efforts to bolster our vertical programming for students to prepare them for life after public education and what that will look like for all of our learners. And so the state is putting forward a training program and professional development for our transition coordinators, our special education teachers, our related service providers, and also our support staff. And so that was supposed to be released on July 1. The state has revised their guidelines. That will now be released on January 1 of 2025. So we look forward to participating in that professional learning and monitoring any upcoming releases from the Bureau of Special Education relative to our post-secondary transition programming. In addition to that legislative component, something that's not new in legislature this year, but is a timestamp for this current school year, is that when the state moved into its new platform, CT Sedge, which is the special education data system, one of the things that was embedded was standards-based goals and objectives. So really aligning a student's individualized education plan with curriculum expectations. So that was something we knew was coming, but as of January 2025, all individualized education plans must be aligned to the curriculum standards in order to be finalized. So our teams will be starting the very rigorous work of making sure that they understand the curriculum, the expectations, and are prepared to write goals and objectives that are aligned with the curriculum. And as Anne had mentioned, we have a really strong partnerships at the highest levels here in the district and are really working to have a cohesive, coherent message around having high expectations for all of our learners, but supporting them with different access points. And so that work starts really with welcoming our new teachers with a common message around having those high expectations, where to find curriculum documents, and with our special education teams really working to help them unpack standards and understand the vertical alignment as we support students in accessing their goals that are support their individualized achievement towards those curriculum standards. In this presentation, I also want to highlight our community partnerships. We continue to have a very robust partnership with the Bridge Family Center. The Bridge has a contract with us whereby which students who may or may not have individualized service plans can access clinical services. They can be independent through groups or through mentorships, and at each building really works with the Bridge to identify what student needs are and how they can best facilitate that. In addition to those services, we piloted a program last year with the Bridge that I'm happy to share we're bringing back, which is a mental health clinic at the middle school level. This is a private pay mental health clinic available to any middle school student across all 3 middle schools who might require individualized counseling supports and mental health and wellness services through their therapist. And so that's available to families. It is private pay, private access with a release through the school. And similar, we have a mental health clinic through the Hartford Healthcare Institute of Living outpatient clinic, still available at both high schools with Matthew Dunn, who is a wonderful clinician who supports both high schools. We've had very positive conversations with Hartford Healthcare about potentially expanding in the future, and we look forward to growing that as well. And we're very fortunate to have a fabulous team with our West Hartford Social Services team, who continues to be just a steadfast support for us here in the district and in the community. So I'd just like to thank them for their partnership. More recently, and I'm going to credit Teresa with this, dialogue, partnership, and conversation around how to support families with accessing resources and services while not being in a public forum. And so the social services has sent funds directly to the school so they can be discreetly shared, those resources with families in a way that helps give families access points that's not public, open, and really helps them get those services without having to come to a big event where they might feel intimidated or identified. And we really value a really significant monetary contribution that the West Hartford Social Services made to our individual schools to support our students and families.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, Claire.
I have a few quick questions. Have you noticed a increase or improved attendance now that it's your second year with the 4 days or 5 days a week, 4-week ESY?
Yes, we have seen a significant improvement in attendance. We saw it right away last year, which was great. That was one of the reasons we shifted to this model. So the good news is we have very positive attendance during our ESY program, which is great news. I think the feedback I've been receiving more often now is relative to our high needs population and just the time between the last day of school. We haven't had as many snow days, so we're ending earlier and there's a larger gap of weeks. And so I think our families are finding that their students really might need more routine and structure or a longer span. So for our students in more specialized programs, we're kind of looking at that, monitoring that. So we'll do a review of student progress from the summer and reach out to families and get stakeholder input as well as teacher input to decide if we need to make any further revisions to our ESY model for next year.
Okay. And then the alignment of the curriculum, is that based on the developmental age of a child or the grade level that they're in? Because the goals of an 11th grader can be very different when your developmental age is 7 years old.
It's a really great question. So it is grade level standards. And so that is why it's deep work to do the work of unpacking standards to some of the precursor levels of the skills that build up to a standard. The state did reference for students that there might be an intra-individual framework that's separate and different than the curriculum alignment. The state hasn't put forward their training. They said it was going to be released in August. I'm eager to see that. There are sessions that become available in October. So we'll work to get our staff to participate and attend those, but we're looking forward for more guidance from the state about students who grade level standards might seem like a very far distant leap, and how it's appropriate and responsive to make sure that we're writing individualized education plans that are reflective of our unique learners and that they're rigorous but not unattainable.
Yeah, I mean, algebra standards, when you can't count, it's a tough alignment.
Correct.
Okay. I'm very happy about the para PD. I think our paras need that kind of recognition and support. With the counseling, is Husky covering any of the counseling, or is that not covered?
Both organizations take a wide array of different service plans, including Husky.
Okay. And then have you seen any increase in the work sites since COVID? A lot of the post-secondary work sites were cut down, and our students couldn't go to sites. Are we back to where we were pre-COVID?
I don't have exact numbers of how many sites we had pre-COVID to post-COVID, but what I will tell you is I know that we have a lot more job sites, and we're coordinating a lot of transportation and van drives between sites. So I do think that we have a very robust offering. In fact, I know it was hard for some of our employers that we partner with during the time off between the end of our ESY session to actually starting back up again, because they've become such good partners with us that we provide so many services for them, that not having some of the products that we make for their businesses has made it more difficult for them to stay fully stocked. So we were making some plans around some of the feedback we received to really think through our volume of production before students leave for their summer breaks, to make sure that our community partners have their materials and supplies, that we have become such valued members in their work to their operations.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have.
It's a really good problem to have.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Gail?
Yeah, I just had one question, and you may not know the answer, but I'll ask it. The report that we have says that the rate of prevalence of students with special needs was 19% as of May of '24. Do you know what the rate is at the start of school?
So the numbers we have are pretty static. I wouldn't say, I don't have an official count. I know as of even this morning, we had a flurry of enrollees. As of last week, I don't know if Liz has that number offhand.
It's just about the same amount. It's about 19%.
19%? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, we shall continue on.
So good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year, as I like to say. So the report that I have is an update on our recruitment, hiring, and retention efforts. And much like my colleagues, HR was very busy this summer as well. So we have hired 52 contracted teachers and 10 interim teachers, as well as 16 new administrators. And 11 of those are the outstanding elementary assistant principals that were referenced earlier. And like Melissa, already seeing some of the payoff on that as I walk around the buildings. Our turnover rate for this past year was at 6%, so that remains very consistent. We've done 6%, 5%, and 6%, so that seems to be the sweet spot for us. And certainly offering and holding numerous exit interviews with folks that were leaving either the district to get a better sense of the why. And you can see there's just a variety of issues, whether it's retirement or relocation, family issues, and some other pieces there. So, one of the things that we continue to be very fortunate is that we continue to attract a large number of highly skilled candidates. So we had over 1,900 applicants this past school year. So that's up 200 applicants from the previous year. And so, as I said to all of our new teachers at New Teacher Orientation, they should sit there and be proud that they were selected through such a very large and extremely competitive pool. So it really speaks volumes, again, to who we are and what we're attracting here in West Hartford. And then when we always talk to all of my teams as we go through hiring, is just really trying to make sure that we're fitting I like to look at each team as like, what's the missing puzzle, what's the missing piece? And so that really led to us having a wide variety of candidates that did come through, and actually 69% of our new hires had at least 5 years or more of teaching experience. So again, really speaks volumes to what we're attracting, and always super proud to point out that we hired numerous West Hartford Public School students that have now moved on and graduated. It's always nice to welcome them back home, as I like to say. So diversifying our professional staff, as you know, that continues to be an area of focus for us as a district, and partnering with Teresa, we really need to just continue to implement our increasing educator diversity plan. Our staff this past year was about 13% of our new hires were identified as minority candidates, which maintains our overall diversity of staff at about 10%. I would say that we're certainly excited to welcome all of them, but know that we have a fair amount of work ahead of us if our goal really is that when students walk in the classroom, that they really mirror our teaching demographic, mirrors our student demographic. So that is work that we know that we need to continue to do, and we'll continue to do that as we continue to move forward. And one of the things that we've identified, and I know you've heard me speak about it a couple of times, is our Connecticut Teacher Residency Program, or as I'll refer to it, our TRP program. So we're excited to have 2 candidates this year. We've gone a little bit down a different path this year. We've typically, or I should say traditionally, have gone down with having 2 folks that were looking to be regular education teachers. This year, we're really excited. We tried to get into it last year. We couldn't get in, and then we got in this year to our special education, or their special education program. So we have 2 folks that are in the program and will be special education teachers at the end of this year. And probably the thing that I'm most excited about, and I know Teresa and I have had some really great conversations with them last year and continue to have them this year, is that there are 2 people that were in our district already working in different capacities that come with outstanding reputations in the roles they were in from the principals, and went through a really rigorous interview process with TRP. And then Teresa and I decided to take it upon ourselves to interview them as well. And so we were really excited with just their overall commitment to education, and not just that, but their commitment to being here in West Hartford. So we really look forward to partnering with TRP. And Teresa and I have had a lot of conversations last year and continuing this year, is just looking at like, what can we do better to make sure that we're supporting them and really eliminating not just the roadblocks and the barriers, but also just being supportive and being there for them as they go through this, which is a really rigorous and time-consuming program. So again, I am looking forward to, as they continue down their journey. We also strategically this year put both of our candidates in the same school, and wanted to look at having them have someone there too that they could just go and talk to, and not just be, a colleague, but someone that's actually in the program and they can kind of close the door and really sort of just be honest with each other about what they're going through. So, a lot of different tweaks that we've looked at to hope to continue to maintain the success of this program. The other piece, as I think was mentioned also by Ann, on August 22nd, we welcomed over 50 new staff members to New Teacher Orientation. I'd like to give a special shout out and thanks to Kristen LaCroix, a 2nd grade teacher at Walcott, who helped moderate that program. She did an amazing job, and I think really helped just show who we are and what we're about. Highlights of that program included a nice introduction to West Hartford Public School from our superintendent, Mr. Vicinas, and also Nora McHugh, our Teacher of the Year, came and gave some inspirational words, and certainly not to minimize their amazing impact, but I think the highlight of the day was our words of wisdom from our Walcott students, and so they did an amazing job with that piece. I'd also like to thank Jessica Blitzer, our Social Studies Department Supervisor, who provided an overview of the history of West Hartford Public Schools and how we've sort of come to be where we are now. And then after that, we went to what I thought was a very beautiful luncheon. Thank you to Lorna for her formal address to the group and really going through, and as well to our town manager, Mr. Ledwith, who also did some nice warm welcomings. I thought it was just a great opportunity to sort of eat and get to know each other a little bit more as we started to get off on the school year. And then the last thing I'd like to report on is, one of the things that we started, which I'd like to consider was our inaugural new tradition of honoring our years of service folks. And so, I appreciate Paul's support of going down this pathway and looking and trying to figure out a way to honor our teachers. And so what was amazing was, as I started to dive into the data and to look, is how many folks have been here in West Hartford Public Schools for over 30 years. And so at this luncheon, we had over 21 staff members that we were able to honor that had been in West Hartford Public Schools for 30 to 34 years. We had 5 staff members that we were able to honor that had been in West Hartford Public Schools for 35 to 40 years. And we had 1 staff member that we were able to honor that has been here for what I would consider an impressive 45 years. It was really heartwarming as I sent out invitations, just the invitations or the yeses that I got back, and really just thanking us for honoring them. And it was really me who was just saying, I want to thank you for your service and dedication to West Hartford Public Schools, and really letting them know that at the end of the day, I think, we all get to hear about the amazing accolades that West Hartford Public School rightfully gets and deserves, but we know it's as a result of all of their efforts. And I thought it was just a neat touch to have what I would call the new mixing with the folks that have been here a little bit longer and sort of seeing that piece. And, the last thing I'll leave you with, and Paul was my witness so that he knows that I'm not making this up, when we were finished with the luncheon and we were helping clean up, one of the wait staff came over from the amazing group that was helping serve the event, and they just said, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm a teacher, and I won't say the district, and said, I've been to many of these catering events, and I've never seen a district that treats their people like you guys do. It really feels like a family, and if you have any openings, I'd love to be there. And so I immediately walked them over to one of our department supervisors and said, I'm not shy, take their information and stay in touch. But in all seriousness, I think it's just a kudos to sometimes we do things that just becomes what we do. And, it was really, I think, a positive piece to hear from someone else that was really just taken back by just the real, I think, love in the room that came from that day, as we all start down what we know is a very rewarding but can be challenging pathway. So that is my report from HR.
Excuse me. Thank you so much. Any questions or comments? We're still smiling, showing our teeth and gums. Oh, Ethan, yes.
One comment I have, and I don't know how to execute it because it's financial, is where I work, they honor people every 5 years up to past to 45, but with they allowed to get something?
Like a longevity
Yeah,
piece?
well, no, it's just like every 5 years, there's a number of items you can look at. 25 years, you do go on a trip wherever. I don't want to blow
I
the
will
budget
talk to
'cause
Liz.
I'll be the first one to
I will
say
talk
it.
to.
No, I'm just saying, if you could
We
do it.
did. We got a what I thought was a very beautiful commemorative apple, but certainly a trip somewhere sounds equally
the
as
trip-
exciting.
trip
And we do offer too a longevity bonus as well, a little financial incentive to people. But I think at the end of the day, when you look at our teachers and you look at them, it's really what comes from the heart. But I do like the idea of a trip, and so Paul, I'll be
Well,
proposing
the trip
that.
was excessive, unless there's a budget.
No, and I should have, because I didn't want to miss out. One of our very own folks in the room was able to be honored. So Mr. Vicinas had his 30 years of service here in West Hartford Public Schools.
Not 45?
Not 45 yet.
Yes. Oh, before you Claire, state your question. Ethan, please know that as your teammate and teammates here, we are all absorbing the question you just made and making mental note of it. And so glad that you recognize the many ways of appreciating the staff here. No, it's okay.
What I was going to say is, and this is before COVID, they actually used to have assemblies and honor the people, and there were a lot of people who, we had 45, we even had 50. And as I said it, I know that the budget's tight, so I don't have a solution.
No, I wrote it down, Ethan.
Well, but I'm just saying, it's a nice touch, and people do
I agree.
appreciate it.
I agree.
Especially when you know, so maybe back in the schools or whatever that they come from as well as the other. I just seen it done very nicely.
No, I agree, and I think that's one of the things we're really working on too, is now celebrating that at the school level. And the truth is, oftentimes, as much as I kid around, I think a trip and all that's beautiful, but really, I think sometimes it's just the recognition that someone knows, like they noticed and someone cared. And that was really, I think, powerful. I know Paul received the same, just really nice, touching emails from people.
Well,
But
just one final comment. It is interesting. You have some people who are very excited to be honored, and you have others who skip the ceremony, calling sick for the day.
which is why we make it optional. So, plenty of advance notice. As much as I like surprises, I know other folks don't. So
Some don't like it, but each their own. Thanks.
Thank you, Ethan. Claire.
Yeah, so I was curious about the TRP program. It's our third year now, is it?
yep, this will be our third year.
And so the candidates that have gone through they have positions in West Hartford. Are they treated like a brand new teacher with the same mentoring, and they do whatever the state requires for new teachers, or is that bypassed? And then can we ever hire TRP candidates from other districts who've gone through that training? How does it work, and how do we continue to support these candidates after they've gone through the program?
Yeah, so, that's one of the things that Teresa and I talk about a lot. So when a TRP candidate is initially placed in we'll call it their first job, they actually don't go through the team process, which all the other teachers are doing. So they know that there's already enough on their plate and sort of let that sit for a year. And we actually provide an additional mentor. So one of our veteran teachers, again, someone that we talk to the teacher and we say, hey, is there anyone you really would connect with? And there's certain requirements that we require them to do. So they're required to meet regularly. They're required to provide input and get good feedback. So, we want to make sure that we're continuing that support, even though they may be technically done with the program, that we know that the journey is really probably now just starting. And so that's a lot of the work that Teresa and I have talked about, and even offering, her popping in and just making sure that they know that they can call her and reach out to her at any time, or myself, and doing that as they continue. As far as other candidates or other TRPs from other districts, once they're finished with their program, they're able to apply anywhere else. What I've seen is ultimately there becomes like a connection to the district that's sort of invested in them and not wanting to leave that, which we'd want for our own candidates as well. But, I would hope that as we, our reputation continues to go out there and Teresa does more networking along with myself, we're, again, never shy to say where we are and to take resumes and to look at those pieces. But.
And those candidates, the mentor teachers that go through the year with the TRP candidates, they're given a stipend. Do the mentor teachers in following years get a stipend, or is it a volunteer?
No, it's a stipend as well, and we actually have a pretty rigorous process as well, where we want folks to apply, interview. Teresa and I will meet with them, make what we think is a good selection, but ultimately then we go back to the actual teacher and say, hey, here's what we're thinking, here's where they're from, here's what their background is, do you think that's a good fit for you? And why don't you guys, if they say yes, why don't you meet and make sure? And again, we tell them all there's no hard feelings if it's not a good fit, because we want to make sure that you feel comfortable ultimately saying this is the person that you're going to call when you need some help.
Right. I don't know if most people are aware the TRP program started in Connecticut and is getting national recognition. And so Connecticut has kind of spearheaded this approach, and people are taking notice. It's great.
Great.
Other questions? All right, thank you. Moving on. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it feels just like yesterday that we were all together again. So welcome back, everyone, and welcome our student representatives. Thank you for being here. So I'm just going to quickly, because obviously our last board meeting, we already got to review, but I would not want to miss out on the fun with the rest of the team in reporting. So the Office of Equity Advancement is focused on 3 essential commitments that drive meaningful change in our district. Supporting development of positive culture and climate, creating collaborative learning opportunities for students, staff, and families, and developing methods of gathering feedback and enhancing communications about our work. Communication actually popped up largely last year as I went through my first year and speaking with different groups and going to schools, talking to students, talking to families, and staff. And so we want to make sure that we actually build a communication loop so that we are being as responsive to the needs of our community as we possibly can. We continue to work with restorative practices. It's something that's going to anchor the work that we do here. Everything about restorative practices is all about relationships and connectivity. We will continue that work. We've developed a strategic roadmap for integrating restorative practices into our schools. And a phased approach so that we're working so the next couple of years, we're working heavily with staff. What I found with this work is that all of the work that we're really trying to do is mostly about the adults. Students will naturally follow in the environment that the adults set for them. And so it's really about a reflective practice of adults being able to monitor their own feelings, their own emotions, what they bring into situations, and how they then can set a different tone. I know a lot of I've seen restorative practices done in the opposite fashion, where you kind of work on, kind of drilling into kids what they need to do, and it doesn't work. The reality is that, we set the tone. So we are heavily focused on adults and reflective practices. And so we'll continue that work as we continue. I was super excited this summer when we think about communications. Thank you, Paul, for not sharing. We did a summer read of Dashka Slater's book, Accountable, which was phenomenal. It's a phenomenal book. If you are interested, I do have extra copies. Just send an email, or I can run up and grab it after the board meeting for you. But we had about 25 participants who read. That was school staff, parents. Actually, way more people read the book than actually were able to join us online for our virtual series that we had this summer. But it was, it's what I love about the book is it's a real life story, and it's the time that we're in now. We are, there have been so many articles that have been posted about, racism and hate and anti-Semitism and all the things that are happening in our schools. And as I, forecasted for you last year, it's not, this will continue. This trend will continue. We are reflective of what's happening in the world. And so as we see what's happening in the world and the turmoil that's happening, it comes into our buildings. And so it's more about how we respond, how we take perspective, how we not isolate each other when things go wrong, and how we kind of come together. And so the book is it's a beautiful way to kind of see what's happening with all the different people who are involved, right? There's the students who created an account. There's the students who were targeted by the account. There's the families that were involved. There's the school, the leadership in the school, the board. Like literally everybody has a role to play in this book. And it really, I think what the conversations that we've had have really been, I think, really important. And the group is inspired and excited about our final meeting, which is next week, which is where we'll actually sit and talk about some real tangible things that we think we can be doing proactively to send out messaging that is different, right? And to have people understand. And I think, when you think about students and students, making mistakes, even egregious mistakes, it's important that, when you have a culture of belonging, that you have to find a way to let them back into your community, right? That if you don't do that, then they are more likely to kind of pull into more extreme behaviors, right? And so really important for us that we allow students to kind of come back into the fold, that we be restorative in the work that we have. Doesn't mean there's not consequences, but it does mean that we have to kind of find a path. And even the title of the book, like Accountable, it's like the question of the day, right? What does accountability actually mean, and what are we actually here to do? And so anyway, I invite you all to read. It's been phenomenal, and we will continue our work. Moving forward, one thing I would say that we are also looking at is when things happen and we're looking to have restorative conversations with students. Something that's popped up is that there's a dearth of the lack of resources for how to have those conversations and not let it be like euphemisms, right? Like, if we're talking about hate, we need to actually say that we're talking about hate. If we're talking about hate language, that's what we actually are talking about. And a lot of times we kind of code it with, not being kind or, students at very young ages are very aware of, racist things, right? And I think that we don't do them any service. And, listen, I was a kid. We all were. But, I used to laugh at what adults assumed I didn't know. I won't ask. I won't put you two on the spot, but right? They're very aware. And I think our desire to protect them is really more of a reflection of our uncomfortability with the topic. And so we're going to push for us to kind of lean into that work as we continue. So the EDC will be looking at creating some resources that will help support schools and having conversations with students so that we can be proactive, but also have a teaching and learning component when things do happen so that students are actually able to learn. And again, if in order for us to be restorative, we have to work really hard on connections and relationships, which is what we are doubling and tripling down on as we begin this school year. So super excited. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, Latoya.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I love hearing about the work this year and the plan to implement restorative practices on like that strategic level. And yeah, like the accountability piece, I think, one thing I just wanted to express is I feel like, especially given the hate speech that's been used historically at our high schools, like it didn't just start the past couple of years, right? And I think our approach, and I understand there has to be consequences, but I think our approach of just suspending isn't working, obviously. And even thinking about like those mandatory, like, you have there's a mandatory level of suspension if you do this thing, I think gets us in that kind of sticky area of mandatory minimums within the criminal justice system. So I'm really excited to see just like how, when we start implementing restorative practices on that systemic level, I'd love to see how specific practices within it are impacting our discipline data, are impacting our chronic absenteeism, and are really fostering that sense of belonging. Like I'd love to see that, like, okay, we're doing this, and like we're not seeing hate speech being used anymore. Or we're seeing like a very small percentage of instances compared to before. So really excited to just hear more, learn more, and for this work to expand in the district. So thank you, Teresa.
Other questions or comments? Yes, Gail.
Yeah, thank you. So I really liked your comment about, not living sort of in a bubble, considering what's going on in the world, and sort of being prepared for the situations that are happening all around us. You saw today the first day of school at Columbia University today with thousands of people out on the streets with violent protests. So it makes me feel better to know that we're at least not trying to hide from what's happening and trying to find a way to address potentially what might happen this school year. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I did have one question, though, about something in your report, and you did, or I don't know if you wrote the report, but whoever wrote this, that your attempt to achieve equal outcomes for all students. And I didn't exactly understand what you meant by that, because I don't know if it's possible to achieve equal outcomes for all students. So I just was curious what that means.
Well, so aspirationally, right? Like that is the goal. Because I personally don't believe that equity exists without those outcomes, right? So it's one thing to have people feel good about themselves and for them to feel like they've, that they belong in a space, that they're treated well when they're in a space, that they can contribute when they're in a space. But we are an institution of education. So our goal is for students to have, we want equal outcomes. There's the equity piece of it comes with our process of getting people there, right? So I give you what you need to get there, but the outcome that we're looking for, like as Ken Williams say with like the crown, right? The goal, right? We want students to master what they need to master to be successful, right? And I think success is, I think, defined by each person, but we do have standards that guide, like, essential standards, right, that are essential for students to learn, for them to be able to grow and be able to, go out into the real world and be independent, right, and do what they need to do in life. And so, we do want equal outcomes for our students. We want, if we're going to be the best district for students, then that has to be our goal. Although I will fully recognize that we are going to struggle and punch our way up to get there, right? But that is the goal. Like, the goal must be that we want all students to succeed. We want all students to be on grade level. We want all students. So I think when people start to lower that bar, right, where we're like, oh, we don't want equal outcomes for students, and we start kind of making excuses for why we can't get there, and we set our expectations lower, it's a very slippery slope, and it's when you see people starting to, differentiate, but they take a task and they bring it down so that the task no longer is anywhere near related to what the actual learning outcome needs to be. So no, Superintendent Vicenius makes us all write our own report. So that was definitely me. And it's intentional, because that has to be the goal. Our goal has to be that bar for every student. And, will we always meet it? No. But we will certainly be trying, and I refuse to phrase things in a way that give us an out from doing that. I want everybody to kind of feel that expectation that our goal is to get students to equal outcomes academically, which is, again, what we're here for.
Yeah, so I'm just going to push back just a little bit.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Obviously we want every student to succeed. I mean, that's the goal of the schools, is that everybody succeeds.
Yeah.
But when you say equal outcomes, to me, at least, it means that every student is going to equally be on the same exact level. So let me just, sort of explain a little bit more. So when I read this, it means to me that, every student in math is going to end up in the same exact place. And in order to do that, and maybe that's not what it means, but in order to do that, you would have to lower the bar, because obviously we can't have that.
Yeah. Sure. I'll defer to my curriculum person.
Well, I'll support everything Teresa's saying in terms of, we have some significant equity gaps between groups of students, and we need to narrow those gaps. And that means that we're looking for, I think, not every child's going to reach AP Calculus. That's not what we're saying for equal. But should we expect every child to master grade level content? Yes. There are gaps between different groups of our students, and we look very hard. A great deal of our work is to narrow those gaps. That doesn't hold anyone back, but that's to provide enough support and encouragement so that students who are below can get up there. And of course, West Hartford, we're very fortunate to have such good programming that we have students who regularly exceed that, and that is not going to be impacted by the fact that we need to narrow gaps and raise performance for many groups of students. I think I understand what you're saying when you say not every child is going to be an AP Calculus. Not every child wants to be an AP Calculus child, and we're not expecting that. But where we see these significant gaps, we address those. This helps.
Claire. Just to add on to that, I also think what is success for one student may be very different success. So your equal outcome does not apply to many students who have severe learning disabilities. So that all comment excludes a group. Unless you're talking about successfully reaching all the goals that are set for them, you can't really treat all, I understand what you're trying to do in closing the gap, but you also have a population that may never read.
So I'll take
those
first stab at that. Yeah, this is our standard. So I agree, right? There you have a population that may never read traditionally, right? When I think about, where we are in the world now and what access we have to other supports that can help people accomplish and do things, I can't in good conscience say that there's a student who will never do anything. I think that if at this point in time we haven't reached a point where we're able to do that, it doesn't mean that there isn't a young person sitting in a classroom right now who's going to invent the next thing that is going to allow them to be able to do that. Limiting beliefs, for me, in the educational field is probably one of the most dangerous things that we can allow in our space. Because it is such a slippery slope. It's this, there were people who believed that because of the color of her skin that you weren't going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. There were people who believed because you spoke a different language, you weren't going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. So, my job is to eliminate limiting beliefs for our professionals, because we don't know the capacity that somebody has within. And if we haven't been able to unlock with current technology somebody's ability to be able to do something, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. And I don't want anyone treating any child as though they can't, right? And I understand. I'm not minimizing or saying that we have some students who have significant challenges. I'm saying that you can have significant challenges and still make amazing progress. And I don't want anyone deciding that you're not going to be able to make that progress. I think that we set the bar and we help push, and then we evaluate where you are, and then we raise the bar a little bit more and we push, and then when you reach that, we push it, and we keep pushing. That's our job as educators. But if we say all doesn't mean all, people get to decide who that means and who that applies to. And that's not what we do, I think, as educators. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can appreciate you saying that, and just wanted to add to that, as someone who came into the district as a new parent with a student who hadn't grown up in elementary schools here, I did experience when my child started, there was that maybe we should she needs these services, and let's start pulling her out of class and figuring it out, when really it was a lack of tier 1 support. And so when there was that push of listen, let's make the environment so that all students feel a psychological sense of belonging, rather than we have a new student, let's start pulling them out, and maybe they need this and all these extra things, and not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but pushing back and saying, no, actually, my child deserves to be in this space, right, with everyone else, and how do we make the space so that everyone can feel that sense of belonging, that just was more effective. And I see now just she's a great student, and she actually didn't have any of those issues. And there were the changes were made around supporting all the students rather than her, and saying that. And so that's what I think about when you say that, for all students deserve that. And I felt that personally with my child, and being able to have, West Hartford say, listen, yeah, you're right. Let's make sure we're supporting all students, rather than kind of putting limitations on them and pushing our teachers into thinking that way too. So I can definitely appreciate that sentiment from a professional standpoint and from just being a parent of a West Hartford student.
If I may piggyback, that's a great example, LaToya. I didn't want to jump in because these guys are more than capable, but I think to go back to the question and try to simplify it, because I don't think it's something that, it's not a new topic. We've talked for years about the achievement gap, and we're trying to reduce this achievement gap. We know we have a gap between the performance of different groups of students, whether we define those groups based on race, ethnicity, whether we define those groups based on, income levels. And we can talk about students with disabilities or students who are not language proficient. And we know that gap is one where time becomes a significant factor, and it's not, it's not so there's the aspirational belief, but getting back to the honors math example, or I'm looking at, Melissa, the disproportionality. And we certainly met the state standard relative to disproportionality, but that's not to say that we don't have disproportionality. It is more prevalent that some of our students of color, our English language learners, may be identified for specialized services, whether it's special education itself or whether it's tiered intervention, outside of the tier 1 at a higher rate than others. And some of that can be, and I think it's a great example because I've heard it from folks, I just may move in from another state. I may just need some transition time and some different approaches, and we need to think about a child outside of what our typical routine is, and not necessarily assume a deficit and be working towards unlocking and figuring out that equitable approach, that different approach for what that child needs. So I don't think there's any real disagreement in here as long as we're all interpreting it the same way. If, to me, an equal outcome, to go back to that math example, if 10% of this group of students is identified for, advanced placement math, the idea would be, hey, we can get 10% of this other group and 10% of this other group. It's not, oh, I have 5 students and 5 students. The percentages of students are the measure that can help to demonstrate the not only the equity of opportunity, but at the end of the day, the equal outcome if we're able to, be able to approach things where we do have a belief that it's not just because you come from a certain household. We recognize you may have advantages or obstacles to overcome, but we want to unlock those things so that everyone kind of gets to the same opportunities. So, my 2 cents.
Other questions or comments? I'm just going to add 1 cent, if I may. Thank you very much for the information and the robust report that you prepared. I hear all that's being said, and I think I agree. I think we're all saying the same thing. It's almost like saying all of our students are going to participate and succeed and complete a track event, whether you're doing a 50-yard dash, a 100-yard dash, a 5K, or a marathon. That is where the equity piece comes in. That's where the specialized attention to that student is defined. But the outcome is you're going to complete a track event. And I so appreciate and respect your advocacy and assertiveness in saying we must ensure that we support and believe and recognize that a student can complete a track event. And it's important for us as the adults and leaders to believe in that, because if our students think that we don't believe in their potential, we're already setting them up for failure. So thank you for your advocacy and ensuring that we are certainly walking our talk as well. Thank you, and I know we have another update. Oh, question, pardon me, Ethan, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to just put it the way I think I see it, and I may screw the whole thing up, so I apologize. But in my mind, the objective is for every student to hit their maximum, whatever that is. And it's going to be different by student, but whatever we can do to foster that or accelerate that is the objective. That's what I thought I read, so hopefully that makes sense, so. Yeah. Okay. I think we're all just different ways.
I think that we're just all saying the same thing, but I think we're saying it differently. But, I do really appreciate, Teresa, that I've heard you say this more than once, that, what concerns me in that statement is that if you have to achieve an equal outcome, you have to lower the bar. And I know you've said it many, many times that you want to actually keep the bar the way it is, if not bring it higher and have everybody try to reach that. So, that makes me feel better. But sometimes when when I see that, it makes me think, are we going to lower the bar to achieve that outcome? But I know you've said many times the opposite, so I appreciate that.
And I appreciate you, and 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 collectively, all that your thoughts and shared in regard to this. So thank you. Ethan, wait, put your mic on to say that. We want to make sure we hear that. Yes.
No, everybody here wants the best for the students, or wouldn't be here.
Absolutely. Ethan, you were on a roll tonight. All right. No. All right, thank you. Continuing on. Thanks.
Good evening.
The final area that we wanted to present to you this evening is our first day of school enrollments. Please keep in mind that the information that you have in your book is just a snapshot of enrollment on the first day of school. As you may recall, our official enrollment account occurs on October 1st, and so we will present that information to you along with additional information on section sizes, et cetera, at one of your November meetings. So on Wednesday, the first day of school, we welcomed 8,735 K-12 students and an additional 283 pre-K students and 49 post-secondary students for a total of 9,067 in-district students this year. As expected, our elementary enrollment is lower than the prior year, primarily due to the fact that we have 62 fewer kindergarten students. As you may recall, we had a change to the starting age for kindergarten that was implemented this year. We had anticipated a reduction, and we came in pretty close to what we expected as far as a reduction due to the burr babies. They're called babies who are born in September, October, November, December, having to wait till the next year or undergo an assessment to see if they were kindergarten ready. This year we have 201 elementary sections for the current school year and an average class size of 19.4 students. As we look at the middle school level, we had a little over 2,000 students on the first day, an increase of approximately 53 students from last year, but still slightly lower than what we had anticipated coming in. At the high schools, we have 1,392 students at Conard, 1,337 at Hall, 36 in our REACH program, and 31 in our STRIVE program, for a total of just about 2,800 total high school age students. Typically, we see enrollments fluctuate a bit in September. In the past, we've seen that our elementary enrollment increases slightly, while our secondary sees a reduction. Typically, that settles out by October 1st, which is why we have that as our standard enrollment count date as set by the state. And so between now and then, we will look at kind of the trends of what's happening. We'll continue to monitor our class sizes. And when we do the official enrollment report, we will present all of that to you and discuss any variances, any anomalies, and use that information as we prepare for the upcoming budget year. Happy to answer any questions you might have, though.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Shannon and then Claire.
Really quick, I was wondering for all school, I mean, elementary schools in particular, but all schools, if it would be possible to get the actual capacity of each building. I'm just curious relative to the way distribution continues to go. It just would be helpful
Certainly,
information.
we have that data. I'm happy to get that for you.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I was curious, is the 19.4 students in elementary, that average, is that fairly consistent over the years? I know COVID, it was lower, but pre-COVID, is that about where we were?
That is about where we were. It's probably just a little bit higher this year, but I do have historical data on that that will be presented in the October 1st report, so you can really see the trend there. You're right that during COVID that was lower as we had, kind of a hybrid education model.
Right. Okay. And then with the 2-year or the 3-year-olds that start pre-K I know with birth to 3, they transition at whatever time they turn 3. Our other students, our regular peers, our regular pre-K, was the cutoff September 1?
It was. We
So
changed
no
the cutoff consistently.
So no 2-year-olds. And then our exceptions for kindergartners, spur babies starting kindergarten, do we know when we're going to phase out and not make exceptions? Or has there been discussion about how many years we'll allow exceptions?
Yeah, we were actually, it's a great question, Claire. We were actually hopeful that in this summer legislative session, or this most recent legislative session, that we had heard rumor that the state might be phasing out that to kind of to have a more hard and fast kind of a rule and better guidance for schools so that we could stay aligned across districts, because that's really one of the things we're most concerned about. That did not come to pass. It's something I'll be inquiring about this year, working on a committee with the Commissioner of Education, so trying to find out what's the state's talking about, and then see what we want to do. But I know that when we give our October 1 numbers, one of the questions we're looking at and the data points we're looking at is how many families did qualify, how did that process look, how much. And I think if we do continue with the testing process, just okay, what's the feedback from our group? We anticipate that by and large, the data, speaks very strongly of the fact that moving to the 5-year-old is certainly of benefit academically for the overwhelming majority of of students of that age group. So I'm expecting that change will, folks will get, I guess, accustomed to it and come to hold that closer as an expectation as opposed to what they've previously held before the state law changed.
I'm a big fan of the change, and I've had 6 classes of pre-K students so far this year, and it is noticeable when the 2-year-olds aren't in pre-K classes. So I'm hoping to get feedback from the kindergarten classes that, having a classroom with everyone 5 and older, it's going to make a difference.
Other questions or comments?
Can we add something just more generally? I'm just curious, it's kind of hard to escape the news about cell phone policies. And I know you mentioned it in the report. I'm just curious kind of how the state issued guidelines, 2 weeks ago, not even, right before school started. Just curious how West Hartford's thinking about that, if there's a way to kind of just revisit the current policy to have a deeper discussion about what's currently happening with cell phone usage.
Yeah, I'll start. Certainly one of the things I've shared and I'm excited about relative to that very late breaking guidance from the state is that the existing policies that we've had in place at our schools very much mirrors the guidance that the state of Connecticut. And just for clarity, for any of the public at home, at the elementary level, there's an expectation that students will not have a cell phone on at any point. And when I speak of cell phones, I also speak of smartwatches, devices like that. So we do recognize that some families may provide their elementary student with a phone for issues with after school or what have you, but the expectation is that those things are kept away in a backpack. Students aren't accessing them. Likewise, kept in a locker, kept in a book bag. And what we try to make sure of with families, especially for those younger students, really for students of any age, if there's a situation, an emergency when someone needs to reach out to a student, we would always want to control that environment. We'd always want to make sure that there was an adult there, if necessary, a trusted adult, but someone that can help supervise for whatever the emergency is, to make sure if it's something as simple as a ride change that they got the information, but for something more significant that we could support with that until a parent was either there or we could put them in touch with the parent. At the high school, and the state guidance speaks to this, there is an expectation of a little bit more of maturity. We've had a policy, and I think you heard Sarah talk a little bit about it. We've always had a policy that cell phones should primarily be off and away unless they were in use for a specific educational purpose at the direction of the teacher. Now, I've been through the high schools the first week of school, and I know, it's a very different sort of recollection for me walking around with a paper schedule, and most students have kind of taken a screenshot of that. But I've been very impressed by the students who, in their first week or 2 weeks of school or what have you, especially our freshmen, who will raise their hand and say, a minute before the end of class, is it okay if I glance at my cell phone? I need to know where my next class is. I don't have it memorized yet, and so on and so forth. And so it's kind of working through those, setting the norms, giving good expectations for students, and allowing them, hey, it is okay, or it has been okay. It's been our practice if you're during your cafeteria period, for instance, or to be able to either use your phone, and the phone might be for music at that point. What I've talked with some parents, I had a great conversation with a Sedgwick parent at the first principal's coffee just the other day. and we were talking about the fact that, and I'll let these two tell me if I'm telling the truth or if I've been misled, but students during the school day aren't using their phones as frequently to communicate with other students. They have the ability to do that face to face by and large pretty easily, whether that's in the hallways, in the classrooms, etc. A lot, and it would be a lot of the communication that's occurring on a cell phone during the school day is home to student, student to home. Not all of it certainly, but a lot of it, and some of that, it becomes, I think, part of the issue relative to we certainly want to maintain those lines of communication, but we want to be able to talk about when there's an emergent situation, something the student really needs to know in that moment. We have a process for that. We can call the office, we can have the student come down, we can deliver that message, we can have them pick it up. So there's lots of ways to do that. Am I off on that comment, or is that fairly close?
I mean, personally, I would definitely agree with that. That like if I'm on my phone and texting, it's with my mom. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say this same, like, I had a meeting with my counselor today, and I just want to text my mom to, like, see if there's anything she wanted me to bring up in that meeting. So, yeah.
Thank you for your transparency. Thank you. All right. All right. Yes. Yes, Claire.
I was curious, on the open choice, there's 10 students that are not in mainstream. So do students through open choice can apply open choice and then be outplaced? Or is it because they came first mainstream? I'm curious about that.
Yes, so, I'm sorry, Melissa, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say, our open choice students come into our district, they are accepted, and then they are, eligible for any of the programs that we have, or in certain cases are outplaced if that's what their educational needs are. But Melissa, I don't know if you had something
Just
else to add.
I want to confirm from where we have a student who's from open choice who may be receiving special education service or outplaced, that's a feature of the program where the district gets reimbursed by.
We do. We get reimbursed from the city of Hartford for all special education for the services.
And the only thing I'll add to that is that it is a blind lottery, so we don't discriminate against students who have individualized education plans. I actually don't think we know that as they go through the process. So as we accept students, and we do treat all of the students through the open choice program that as if they were West Hartford students, and we program for them similarly.
Yeah, my question was, I would hope they get as much mainstream opportunity and opportunity to be with the peers in West Hartford as much as possible.
Other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you all so very much. Thank you. Now moving on to staff reports and board discussions, which we have just gone over quite well. So let's move on to routine matters, where we have approval of the minutes. Seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of June the 4th, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Shannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, LaToya. Any discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you. Also seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the special board meeting on June the 7th, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yeah, what,
Yes. Thank you. One abstention. Thank you so much. Correct.
I wasn't here either.
Pardon me?
Was I don't think I was here either, was I?
So we're going to, let us.
Oh, I am? Okay. Okay.
You were there.
So let us rewind. Let us do this once again, please. Again, seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the special board meeting on June the 7th, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second?
Second. No, it's okay.
Thank you, Shannon, but thank you also, Ethan. Discussion. Again, this was the meeting we came together for the purpose of reviewing and discussing our superintendent's performance. Yes? Correct. That's all right. That's all right. Any other discussion? We all have clarity now on what event we're talking about? All right. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Thank you. The motion passes. Moving on now to information and reports, where we have board members. Any communication or reports to share? Or any other information or discussions? I just want to briefly say again to board colleagues, welcome back. Glad to be with all of you all and looking forward to our journey ahead. And tonight clearly gave evidence as to why you all are greatly appreciated. We know that we come together for the purpose of our young people, for our families, for our staff, for our teachers. And so the questions, the comments clearly reflect all of that. So thank you all so much for your dedication. Moving on now to future business, where we have announcement of future meeting dates. Our next Board of Education meeting will be Tuesday, September the 17th, 2024, here in room 314 at 7 o'clock, followed by Tuesday, October the 1st, 2024, once again here in room 314 at 7 p.m. And then on Tuesday, October the 15th, here at the Town Hall, room 314 at 7 o'clock. Do we have a request for any future agenda items? Seeing none, do we have any visitors who would like to make a comment? Seeing none, we do not have an executive session, therefore seeking a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Shannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Meeting adjourned at 8:46.